I'm Greg Groogan, and welcome to Watch Your Point, where our panelists call it like they see it. Let's meet them. Starting us off, Republican strategist Jessica Colon. Next up, progressive commentator and Houston attorney Nyanza Moore. In the 3 spot, Bob Price, associate editor of Breitbart, Texas. Batting cleanup, Marcus Davis, radio host of Sunday Morning Live. Next up, businessman, columnist, and former Kemah mayor, Bill King. And closing us out on the hot corner, Chicano activist and educator, Tony Diaz. Let's go. True to his campaign pledge, President Donald Trump has broken America's nuclear arms treaty with Iran, much to the anguish of allies like Great Britain, France, and Germany. The commander-in-chief called the Obama-brokered measure the worst deal in U.S. history and vowed to reinstate major sanctions against Iran. Within hours of the announcement, hostilities erupted between Israeli and Iranian forces, leading the president's critics to predict scrapping this agreement would very well trigger a war.
I would advise Iran not to start their nuclear program. I would advise them very strongly. If they do, there will be very severe consequence.
I'm turning to the panel. What's your point? Did the president do the right thing, Bob Price?
Absolutely did the right thing. This is the worst deal that's ever been negotiated in U.S. history. Giving all that money to Iran to let them sponsor terrorism and develop their own nuclear program was ridiculous. That money was not theirs. That money had been set aside by the courts for the victims of terrorism sponsored by Iran. And the fact that we can now pull out of this deal and renegotiate with them. You know, President Obama knew this was a bad deal because he didn't even submit it to Congress to pass as a treaty. You know, he just did it as an executive order, which means that the next president can just overturn it, as what has happened here.
Marcus, here we have a deal brokered by President Obama, and we're talking about breaking ranks with all of our allies again. Is that a problem for you?
Well, you started by saying the Obama deal. I'll be frank with you. This is about, 1, partisan politics, and 2, race. If this deal had not been called the Obama deal, this deal would not have been terminated. If it had been called something else, matter of fact, if President Obama had been against this deal, one of his promises for campaign would have been to make this deal happen. That's how sick this administration is. Talk about campaign promises. I'm still waiting on Hillary Clinton to go to jail. I hope he'll honor that promise. But the reality of it is the idea that we're not just breaking ranks with our allies. It's not just the rest of the world thinks this is a good idea. His leadership thinks this is a good idea. He didn't break ranks just with our allies, but he broke ranks with his advisors, the people who understand this in-depthly. And I just frankly disagree with, if this works, it works. But I disagree with the approach that we're taking and the severe dangerousness of it. They're already fighting. They're already in a war. And I think that's dangerous for America.
Bill King, is there a danger in busting a deal like this and walking away?
There's a risk both ways, and I agree completely with Marcus. This is being seen through a completely partisan lens. What I am concerned about is the sound bites that we use for these really complicated issues.
Right.
Look, the Persians and the Arabs have been fighting with each other for 1,500 years. It's been a struggle for control of that dominance by the Arabs and the Persians, and this is a continuation of that battle. And for whatever reason, we've now decided to jump in on the side of the Arabs in this, which frankly, I'm not sure that's the right side to be on. But we need to look at this in this larger historical context. This is just one little piece of a much larger drama playing out, and I don't see a strategy for how we're going to bring peace to the region.
Tony, jump in here real quick.
Well, the reason that we're dealing with this with sound bites is because our president doesn't read anything longer than a tweet, and someone should tweet him that it's called the Nobel Peace Prize, not the Nobel War Prize, because as soon as he backed out of the deal, a war began, and it's a hot war. It's not a Twitter war. This is a hot war. We have, of course, it's Israel and Iran fighting on Syria. So Israel bombed 35 sites in Syria. So it's already complicated, and really, the Russians are going to get involved as well. So, I mean, we're talking about a president that might have just pushed us to the brink of nuclear war, which is definitely a hot war going on right now because of Trump's decision.
Final word on this topic from Jessica. He's keeping his promise, though.
He absolutely is keeping his promise, and he's trying to avoid nuclear war, exactly like he is trying to do with North Korea, trying to avoid nuclear war, trying to encourage denuclearization. And that's what we're about in this situation. What is amazing is there was a lot of critique leading up to the announcement of President Trump saying he was going to withdraw, and now the critics actually have been silent, which is really remarkable to me. I think in the wake of North Korea, I think everybody is in a wait and see mode to see exactly what is going to happen with Iran, and can the president have the same type of success in Iran that he appears to be having in North Korea.
We will follow closely. Elsewhere, the president notched a notable success by securing the release of 3 American citizens imprisoned by North Korea. The concession comes as a prelude to next month's nuclear disarmament summit in Singapore. Now, according to multiple polls, Mr. Trump's handling of the North Korean crisis has generated a recent improvement in his approval ratings. However, the president's opponent suggests the so-called master of the deal may well get played. I'm coming to Nyanza more.
Okay, I have to say that the reason why it's so important for Donald Trump to stick with whatever agreements the United States has already forged is for this very reason. There is absolutely no indication that North Korea will do what it says it's going to do, especially if they know that anytime a U.S. president is elected, whatever they agree to, whether it takes 2 years to get together, like, you know, the last deal, it's something that can be revoked, and at any time, the U.S. is not worried about its allies. I do believe that this is a positive that we are going to meet in June in Singapore. I hope the meeting actually occurs. And you know, June is a very long time away. When you think about U.S. politics and the way the president operates, he's very flippant. He can change his mind in 2 weeks from now, or if things get so bad and out of control with Iran, then we may decide that we need to hold off on that, because it seems like we have so many different issues with foreign policy going on, like 5 or 6 major things going on at the same time, that we barely can go ahead and open up an embassy in Israel, going ahead and seeing what's going to happen there. We've got Jared Kushner leading the way. I think that we're in a situation where we need to sit down and take a break. Let North Korea do its own thing. We can have the meeting on June the 12th, and hopefully things will be resolved. But this whole Iran deal, it's just a lot of bad feeling that's going on. I don't believe that we're very trustworthy with any of our deals.
Yeah, there are some victory laps being taken now before anything's actually been done.
Well,
I'm going to go ahead.
Well, you know, a couple things. First of all, so excited about the U.S. Embassy opening in Jerusalem tomorrow. But CNN had a poll just this week that shows 77% of Americans agree with this, to open up discussions with North Korea and to have this sit down. 77% of Americans agree with that. And 20% jump from Democrats in support of President Trump in these conversations with North Korea. Furthermore, North Korea.
I'm one of the 20%.
I'm
just telling you.
So this, you know, actually, I think we're seeing a stair-step approach to June 12th, which is the date for Singapore, the sit-down with Kim Jong-un and President Trump. And we're hearing that North Korea is going to begin their denuclearization process beginning on May 23rd. So I think we will see an evolution toward June 12th and take this step by step.
Marcus, do we run the risk of leading with our chin, so to speak, when we're talking to the North Koreans?
Well, first thing, we have to celebrate the 3 Americans that came home.
Yes.
And we have to celebrate the work that this administration did in order to make that happen. I am not in denial of that great work. Here's where I have a problem. The aforementioned subject, where he ripped this deal up with Iran, is a problem for the North Korean deal. Yeah. What kind of message, what kind of signal are we sending to the world if we say we don't care what we agreed to a year ago? It's out of the window.
5 seconds, go ahead.
You make it a treaty, and then it becomes the law of the land, and it can't be overturned by the next administration.
Okay, we're going to talk more.